She is here. I mean, she's here. I am so excited. My dear sister, my friend, somebody I admire, Tsakani Malukele, the Auditor General, in the house. Oh, Grand.
Sharp. I'm
Are
so
you well?
delighted to be here. I'm good.
You've been engaging with the young people.
Man,
Yeah?
I've had a wonderful time with these young people. It's probably the best thing I've done all week. I thoroughly enjoyed the hour you gave me.
Yes.
Bengicela next time we
Yeah.
could extend.
Ungifake nje
Lento
extra.
hour I sebenzi tu.
You know, I'm deliberate about showcasing the public sector. Tell young people why the public sector matters.
So here's the thing. Many of us worry about service delivery, about performance of public institutions. We worry about the sustainability of our developmental agenda. We worry about all of those things. And then we look with envy at other countries. On the continent, we envy Rwanda. Beyond the continent, we look with tremendous envy at countries like Singapore. In fact, I asked the young people today, I said, which country do you envy?
Yes.
And the first one that came up very loudly was
Yes.
Singapore. So I said, let me tell you about Singapore. There, the very best in their society work in the public sector.
Exactly.
APA, who's working in the public sector?
Yes.
Would you work there?
Yes.
And why? I think we've got to interrogate that.
Yes.
It's too important a sector to leave to people who have no better options.
Yeah.
It's too important a sector for the talented amongst us to turn their backs on it. At 32% of the GDP, at the tremendous investment that we all make in government expenditure, at the significance of the impact of government performance, good or bad, on yours or my life. In fact, it affects our life directly every single day. It affects our lives in terms of how our children's prospects will be, because the moment we keep borrowing, we're borrowing from them and their children. So my sense is that we underestimate the significance of the public sector, and we want to turn our backs on it when the reverse should be true. So it's too important to leave alone. And I worry about this idea that we've made it a place where the most talented don't want to be.
So you and I are now reimagining, because the theme of this conversation is the next 30 years. And what you're saying is, young person who's at varsity, young person who's doing well in their corporate environment, look at the public sector as the next frontier to make a difference.
Absolutely. You know, young people, fortunately, this generation of young people want to make a difference. When you talk to them, there's an idealism which I envy.
Yes.
And I so admire. And I believe that the public sector provides that space. And, you know, one mustn't just look at the public sector as a place maybe you do once in transit elsewhere.
Yes.
I believe that we'll build a better country, a much more sustainable country, a much more cohesive society, if we make the public sector a place where people can come in and out, where there is a natural movement of people, of professionals, of technocrats, of leaders, private sector, public sector, all of the time. Because we're never going to be able to build this country sustainably if you continue with this polarization.
Yes.
Partnership and collaboration only happen when people know each other. And how do you know each other? What if your child was next door, never visits you?
Yes. You'll never know. Exactly. You have been part of a leadership team in the public sector that has trained a huge number of auditors. Do you want to just expand on that? Because there are a lot of people who don't know the story. And I've lived the story because of my knowledge of you and Kimi and the passion you've had to do this.
Yes. It's one of the things I'm most proud of.
Yes.
So our office trains people who want to become chartered accountants.
Yes.
Many of them become chartered accountants, others become government auditors, others become other types of accountants, and they move on. right? So over about 20 years. So the scheme was started when Shaukat Faiki was there.
Yes.
Then Terence extended it, and
Yes.
Gimi extended it, and I've done a
Yes.
few things with it. And I'm really excited about where we are now. We have, at present, the largest training scheme that's been accredited by the South African Institute of Chartered Accountants.
Wow.
Not only is it the largest, it's got the highest concentration of black people and black women. But importantly for me, is that not only are we the largest in terms of the number of people in the scheme, we're starting to be in the top 3 or 2 in terms of the people who pass every single year.
No, repeat.
So maybe let me put it simply. So 2 or 3 years ago,
yes,
if you look at the number of CAs that are produced, and that the number of people who are passing part 2 of the board exam, the final qualifying exam set by SACA, and it's the same exam, there's no public sector, private sector exam, year 1.
Yes.
Now, if you look at it, often you'll find a KPMG as the top number, or a Deloitte, or a PwC, etc. 3 years ago, we were number 2. 2 years ago, we were number 3. I want us to stay there.
Yes.
When you've got an office of the AG that's delivering into the market an additional 300 new CAs, 250 new CAs every single year, many of them stay, but also many of them go somewhere else. What that does is it builds capability for South Africa. Let me explain a bit more. Many of our guys will stay, as I say, but a large number leave. They go into the private sector, and more into the private sector. Why? Because people can see that the quality of the AG is comparable to anywhere else. My sense is actually better.
Yes.
Many more of our guys are finding opportunities abroad in the public sector and the private sector, because my fellow AGs, my peers across the globe, are recruiting from the office of the AG more and more, because they understand the quality that's at the office of the AG. So I'm really excited, because you really transform lives. Because remember, many of our guys are first-generation graduates, and you know that once one person cracks it and qualifies as a CA, the top brand in the country, in the world, the life of that family is transformed for generations, right? But also, you're building capability for the state. And one of the things I'm really excited about is our guys don't have to have a chip on their shoulder. Kungatwa when you're public sector. They can walk anywhere in the world knowing full well that they are, in reality and perception, amongst the very best in the world.
If you're speaking to an FD or a CEO of a private sector company, if you're speaking to a CEO of a state-owned enterprise, you're saying, if you're looking for talent, it's there.
Absolutely. I'm saying that boldly. You know, one could moan and say, oh, I'm building talent for our own pipeline. I think that would be narrow-minded. My view is we've got to build for society. And sure, I know very well that the investment we're making is going to go elsewhere, and that's good. Yes, we want to retain the very best within the office of the AG, but I know that our job and our invitation is to do more of this, to create more and more talent. And yes, private sector or CFO, the talent is there at the office of the AG. Because why? Guess what? You have a public sector institution that's just as good as any that you've got in the private sector. And that's important. And they're going to bring you diverse perspectives that you're not going to get anywhere else. That young person that trained at the office of the AG, auditing departments, auditing legislatures, auditing state-owned entities, auditing metros in their complexity and size, that person has experience that no one else has. Surely that's what you want.
We've had a consequential election. One of the things that people are crying out for is better services, is delivery, is improvement in their lives. You say in many of your speeches and in your reports, guys, you're not understanding this piece of the management of the finances of a municipality, of a state-owned entity, and whatever. If that's not done, the service is not coming. Can you expand on that? Because I'm not sure whether they're hearing you. Me, every time you say it, it's louder. Because you're saying, no. You're worried about it didn't arrive. You don't realize it started with the wrong person was hired. They spend the money on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's that thing.
Yeah. So I'm trying hard to make sure that all of us understand audit messages beyond the technical stuff.
Yes.
So, because the longer we do that, the longer it's going to take for us to really get real about what needs to be fixed. If you've got a CFO and they're unable to produce credible financial statements each quarter and each year, then you must start asking questions, what are you doing every single day?
Yes.
Because if they're unable to do that, what chance is there that you have a CFO that ensures that that money, together with the accounting officer or the city manager, that money is going towards what it's intended for? Because they can't prove it.
Yeah.
So I found that there was a tolerance for something called a disclaimer of audit opinion. And I couldn't understand why we tolerate it.
Yes.
And when I say we, I mean all of us
Yes.
as South Africans, because some
Yes.
municipalities have a disclaimer year after year after year. And yet they keep getting money from us. And I keep, as transfers. And I keep asking, but why is this tolerable to us? Because the basics of at least demonstrating what you've done with the money, before we even say
Yes.
how good a quality have you delivered on services, just can we talk about what you've done? It's intolerable that we contemplate that every single year someone can get away with taking resources and not being able to show what they've done with them, because this is not their money. They are stewards over public funds, and we shouldn't be tolerating that. When somebody can't even show what they've done, in that the debits and credits don't make sense, they can't show you what they've spent the R1 billion on. They can't show you. They can't show you. They can't prove it. Where does anyone know where it's gone?
Yeah.
And then you wonder why your wastewater treatment plant is not being fixed and why there are sewage spills.
Yeah.
So what we found also, that in people tolerating disclaimers, you'd hear an utterance along the lines of saying, no, South Africans don't worry about disclaimers or audit outcomes. They worry about services. We who run these municipalities are delivering services. And I'm like, So we said to our teams, no, you see, when we audit performance information, because our auditors look at financials, performance information, and compliance.
Yes.
So when you look at performance information, go and check what they're telling people. Go and check if they fixed the wastewater treatment plant. Go and check, because financial management is about that whole chain. If you get money appropriated to you to repair and maintain infrastructure, well, we better see that you've done it. So when we got there, we saw it wasn't being done. So we were able to link what can be a technical accounting thing about disclaimer to reality on the ground, to say, well, let me help you understand why there are serious spills on a regular basis in this area. Well, because the money is not being properly managed. So a disclaimer is not a technical thing. So our view is that public institutions must be assessed on their ability to do what they're supposed to do.
Their mandate.
Yes, absolutely.
Talk to me about this notion of hiring the right skill for fulfilling that mandate at all the key roles that matter in any institution.
What we find is that too often even people who are supposed to do the very basics aren't doing it, which is a discipline issue, because it's not that hard to maintain slips. But if you've got a technocrat, let's say like a CFO, who is unable to maintain these disciplines and get the creditors clerk to reconcile things, to give their records, etc., to be reviewed, what that does is over time, the institution breaks down. Because even if at the end of the year they go and hire a consultant and say, okay, the AG is coming next week, just quickly produce financial statements, man. Which is what happens. We'll give you 5 million rand, and the person comes, they do this, and the 5 million rand should go on, and the AG gets there, and the information can't be substantiated because you can't fudge it. You can't now pretend you were maintaining financial records during the year when you didn't. And that's why you get a disclaimer. Do you know that the disclaimer municipalities, the ones who get repeat disclaimers, they are the ones that spend the most, on average, the most money on consultants. On average, maybe 9 million rand a year, just to compile financial statements. They're the ones. The clean audit ones, the ones there's stability, where they do their work, where there's regular governance, even if things are not perfect, but the basics are in place, those ones with the clean audits, where they have some complex accounting thing perhaps that they need to supplement their skills on, they get an expert to come in. They're spending, yes, on consultants, but a lot less. A lot less. The ones who are spending more are those ones. And then maybe the point is the institution breaks down because the controls are not there, the disciplines are not there, nobody really is being held accountable. And the ones who are good, who want to do their work, they'll leave because you create an environment of chaos.
So if we are being frank with one another as a country, we want to have an ethical society. It means you are challenging us as the private sector to say, if you know that the fundamentals are not there, but you're taking on this work to just produce this piece of paper, you're not helping.
No.
But you're one of the first people to complain that there's sewage in that municipality, they've not delivered the service, but you've just gone and made money from a dysfunctional municipality, and you do it every month, and you do it every year.
Absolutely. And then your peers applaud you because you've done well, because you got.
And you've made a lot of money in the public sector.
And you've done well.
From a dysfunctional environment. And you're saying, Guy, you should be saying, this is work I do not want.
Yes.
I'd actually ask you, municipality, hire the right people.
Absolutely.
And then when there are technical things where we can give you support, let's give you the support.
Yes.
But don't say I'm making money and I'm getting awards when you know it's a sham.
Absolutely. Because here's the thing, it's your country. It's your children that will bear the brunt of this continued decay. And yet you want to be applauded because you've got this big bonus now and you've got all of these material rewards that come with that type of activity. But it's so short-sighted because you're killing the country and you are impoverishing your children and their children.
Let's go further. Now that me and you are in trouble, let's go further into trouble. So again, I run a business and I'm saying I'm an entrepreneur, I got a tender or whatever from the municipality. I don't deliver the stuff. Or I deliver the stuff broken, but I'm already paid. But again, when the municipality is dysfunctional, I'm surprised.
You're
Why
surprised?
am I surprised?
You're surprised, and you also want to point a finger at some other person. You say, those ones are corrupt. Look in the mirror.
But you are corrupt.
Look in the mirror.
If I am in the municipality and there are qualified young people who should be getting the job at the municipality, I don't give them the job, I give it to my nephew, or I expect young people to do sexual favors to get a job, I shouldn't be surprised that the municipality is dysfunctional or that state entity. I'm part of the problem.
You are a huge part of the problem because your nephew will never know the right thing and they'll never do the right thing 20 years later. But guess what? The same municipality that you're busy killing today will remain dead for the next generation because the other people around you are going to do the same thing. And over time, if you're in finance, someone else in engineering will do the same thing, someone else in corporate services will do the same thing. Then over time, that institution is filled with people like your nephew who don't know what they're doing and who think the only way to get ahead is this type of nepotism and this type of sexual favor, and they'll never deliver, they'll never learn. You have an environment that's not professional, that has no capability, and will deliver very little hope, if any, for people in that community.
Here am I again. I'm one of the biggest critics of the public sector or the municipality, but I'm not paying my rates. I'm not paying the taxes. Whatever boundaries are being given, I'm not following the municipal acts and whatever, and the municipality has less revenue. And therefore cannot deliver the service, and then again I complain. Comment about that.
What's worse is that you're probably a councillor as well, and then you complain. You don't pay your rates because you've made sure you're on the list of indigents, and therefore benefit from not being billed for services. And then you're the first one to continue to complain. And then you're the first one to then worry about, oh, but my children's future is dark and dim. So my children have to create opportunities to leave this country. Well, I'm not sure where that ends up because what happens to their children's children?
Let me end off by saying you can work anywhere in the world. Your skill, your talent, your experience, your expertise, your reputation. can get you to work anywhere in the world. Why are you still here? What would you say to somebody who wants to leave? And what would you say to somebody who wants to come back? Why are you here with everything you've got?
I have probably an overdeveloped sense of responsibility. I have a sense that in many ways I've benefited from blessings, from favor that very few people have. Not that I've had the most, but I'm quite sensitive to the notion that in many ways I benefit from unmerited favor. What that does for me is it triggers a sense that I've got to give back. And I've got to see a very clear line between what I do technically, which I enjoy, by the way.
Yeah.
I enjoy auditing, I enjoy accounting, I'm a technocrat, right? But I got to see a very clear line between that and an impact on society. That's what fuels me personally. There are very few places where I'll find that, because remember, this is home for me. So I have the opportunity to do this here with a sense of ownership, with a sense of authority, because this is home. This is my country. I also similarly have this burden to say, I'm a mother.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I've done my bit, so that when they look me in the eye one day, bang,
Yes.
I can answer with some credibility. But I also want to make sure that my father, who's no longer here, wherever he is, can look at me and say, all right, she did good on what I did for her. And similarly, my mother, and similarly, the big clan and village, proverbial village that has raised me. One other thing, I'm a Christian.
Yes.
I want to be able to get to heaven one day.
Yeah.
And be asked, what did you do?
In your time on earth.
And I want to have an answer.
I was invited to launch something called Women in Audit. And you know me, I always try and create havoc. I said, let's not create an organization. I want there to be a movement. And this was done by women in SNG. And I said to them, let's create this movement that make people to be passionate about audit and want to be auditors. You know the one name that kept on coming up in all conversations? It was your name. All I want to say is keep being the role model that you are. There are an incredible number of people that look up to you in your own organization, and the incredible work that it does for young people. I always watch in awe, because I know that your heart is in it and that your passion is in it. Keep inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lincoln. Thank you.